This is Dan Grider, and I'm in the cockpit of my own personal DC3. This is an airplane that I've owned and flown for almost 20 years. I'm sitting here in the right seat, which is typically my seat for giving instructions. So I've given several hundred type ratings and lots of dual instruction in the DC3. Lots of people have called and asked about the unfortunate accident in Texas over the weekend. We're just thankful that everybody got out alive and there's no fatalities in that accident. Couple things that I wanted to point out that is super common. I see it almost every time in almost every single applicant that sits in this left seat, and that is on takeoff, the inability to push, and on landing, the inability to push. Pushing on this yoke from this seat, which is what happened in Texas, you would have the yoke right here. Ideally, you should push the power forward and then say set power and have your pilot not flying finish setting the power for you, at which point your other hand comes over to the yoke, and there's a reason for that. If you notice, this yoke is grooved on both sides. The back side of this yoke has places to put your fingers. It's for a better grip. It's so that you can get a hold of this yoke, because you're going to need this kind of muscle, and you're going to need, especially a heavily loaded airplane, you're going to need to push this yoke with both hands like this, coming through about 40 knots. What that's going to do is raise the tail. With the tail in the air, the angle of attack on the wing is killed, and now you can accelerate down the runway, and once you get to liftoff speed, 84 to 90 knots, then you can use both hands, rotate nice and easy, and come back up. If you don't ever push on this yoke to fly the tail wheel like this, if you don't ever do it, that airplane is going to become airborne in a 3-point stance. That wing will fly early, and that's exactly what those guys did down there. Super unfortunate. On landing, it's the same thing. Once your mains are down, push on that yoke, puts the tail in the air, makes the rudder up above the fuselage where you've got better rudder control, and gives more effective braking. You're not going to go over on your nose. The only way to go over on your nose on landing is to stand on the brakes and push hard on the elevator control column fully forward while you've jammed on the brakes. That's not the idea here. Same thing on takeoff. You've got to get both hands on that. The pilot flying, put both hands on your yoke. Once you've said set power, told the other guy to finish setting the power for you, take a good look out the windshield straight ahead, check oil pressure left and right before you get to V1. When it's time to rotate, just ease it back a little bit, but you have got to make the tail fly. American Airlines flagship Detroit did the same thing in Kansas City a few years ago. Yankee Air Museum up in Oshkosh did the same thing a few years ago. We've seen it a lot over the years. Some of them actually survive it and lift off and continue flight in the 3-point attitude and survive it. Some of them don't. This one was super unfortunate, but you have got to get that tail in the air, and that's exactly what happened down here in Texas over the weekend.